Let's turn to another clip of yesterday's hearing. This is Georgia Republican Representative Paul Brune.
When I was in the Marine Corps, I was taught to know your enemy. And I think that's extremely important. And the enemy in this, the focus of this hearing today is not the Islamic religion. It's Islamicist. It's the radical jihadist. It's the radicalization of our youth, as Mr. Bledsoe and Mr. Behe have talked about. And I think it's absolutely critical that we as a nation focus upon doing exactly what I was taught in the United States Marine Corps, to know your enemy. Dr. Jester, I'm very appreciative of your work and your testimony, and particularly your answer to Mr. Richmond, because I think it's extremely important to focus on who wants to destroy this country. And I believe that there are entities within this country that are supporting those radical jihadists. I think there are organizations that are very public that are supporting the radical jihadists. And we need to know exactly who our enemy is. We need to focus upon that enemy and not let political correctness deter us from that.
That's Paul Brune, Republican from Georgia, in the hearings held by the Long Island Congressman Peter King, dealing with what he called the radicalization of the Muslim American community. Mark Potok is also joining us from Montgomery, Alabama, Director of Intelligence Project at Southern Poverty Law Center. You heard the congressman saying, know your enemy. Talk about the threats in this country, Mark Potok.
Well, when we listened to Peter King in one of the earlier clips saying there's no equivalency with neo-Nazis and so on, you know, he is simply misrepresenting objective reality. The Hill newspaper reported a few days ago that the FBI has said that about 2/3 of all terrorism in this country between 1980 and 2001 was committed by non-Islamic American extremists. Since between 2001 and 2005, according to the same report, that figure went up to 95%. You know, I would recall just one of about 75 domestic terrorist plots we've tracked since the Oklahoma City bombing. Back in '98, there was a Klan plot to blow up a particular gas refinery in Texas. At the time, the authorities said that 30,000 people would have been killed had this plot, in fact, come off. That is 10 times the number of people who died on 9/11. So, look, I'm not suggesting that foreign jihadists aren't a threat, or even a certain number of domestic or sort of homegrown jihadists, but it is simply false to say that, you know, there's this massive threat out there, and that concerns about the radical right.
And tell us about Kevin William Harpin, ironically this week taken into custody in connection with the attempted bombing of the Martin Luther King March in Spokane, Washington.
That's right, and let's remember that Peter King, we just heard Peter King saying there was not one terror-related case that related to the radical right in recent years. You know, just the day before yesterday, a man named Kevin Harpin was arrested and has been charged in connection with the attempted mass murder with an IED of Martin Luther King Day marchers in Spokane, Washington. He had constructed a device, or allegedly constructed a device, that probably would have taken out scores of those people. It was packed with shrapnel. There was rat poison in the device, reportedly, that would have supposedly prevented victims' blood from coagulating. So, in other words, it was meant to kill as many people as possible. And this man, it turns out, was a member of the National Alliance, for many years the leading neo-Nazi group in America. We found all kinds of postings on neo-Nazi websites and forums from him, talking about the coming race war, talking about what was and what wasn't useful for building bombs, talking about all those kinds of things, talking about how furious he was at anti-racists and contemplating the possibility of shooting them and so on.
I'd like to, Talat Hamdani, I'd like you to react and tell us what you would hope Americans how they would react to these hearings that attempt to malign the entire Muslim community in the United States.
Well, the hearing, it was a charade. It was Peter King's hearing. It was his judgment. But the representatives of our Congress, majority of them, who took an oath to defend the Constitution. They defended the Constitution yesterday. Rep. Sheila Jackson, Carson, Mr. Thompson, everybody, they said this is not about, it is about radicalization, but across the board, it should be opened up because there are many radicalized people, but not one faith. To close in on one faith, like Keith Ellison said, God bless him, it is saying we will investigate the drug dealers, but only the black drug dealers.
Talat Hamdani, I want to thank you so much for being with us, and we will post the full interview with Mark Potok online at democracynow.org.